What's the difference between a soft air Beretta and a real Beretta? Let's find out, apart from the obvious red cap of the soft air one. The first difference that jumps out is the balance weight. Surprisingly, the soft air one is heavier with 966 grams compared to the real one, which weighs 919. However, the balance is completely different. When you pick it up, you can feel that the soft air one is heavier. In the grip, therefore, it actually feels lighter in hand, while the real one, despite being overall lighter, has the weight shifted very forward. The barrel and the locking block are indeed quite bulky and unbalance it forward. Obviously, this changes drastically when we go to load it. The software Beretta changes its weight very little, while the real one can increase it quite a bit. Externally, the dimensions of the two guns are absolutely identical. We also find the same controls. We find the command for the disassembly of the weapon. We find the hold open latch that keeps the slide open when the magazine is empty. We obviously also find the magazine release button. One thing that is very noticeable is the strength of the spring. The real Beretta has a significantly stronger recoil spring. Here, in the end, what opens the slide in this Airsoft version is the same gas that pushes it out. The pellet doesn't need a particularly strong spring to close. It's very light. The real Beretta, on the other hand, is quite heavy. Let's remove the magazines. Let's see here. The differences are dimensionally quite similar. They even hook in the same position, but as you can see then, quite. Obviously, this in the end is just a box that holds the shots. The magazine of the Beretta from the softener is much heavier, having to also contain the gas cylinder. It is obviously very, very different. I'm curious to see if the real Beretta can take the magazine from the softener one. No, it doesn't want to hook. It doesn't want to go in all the way. It doesn't want to hook. Let's see if the opposite is possible. Just to try. For some reason, this also wants to go all the way in. So just for the enthusiasts, it's impossible to confuse the two chargers. Let's go ahead and open the two weapons to see exactly what the internal differences are. To disassemble our Beretta, we need to press this button and rotate the locking block. This will release the slide. We then separate the frame, remove the recoil spring, and unlock the barrel to pull it out of the slide. The slide, obviously in this version, is quite heavy, as is the barrel with its locking block. A crucial component in Beretta's 90 series firearms. Forward, we press our version of the soft air, we press the same button outward, and in the same way we move the slide forward. The slide here, the barrel is really very light. This thing is very particular. The really heavy part, as we said in that soft air Beretta, is the slide. And for this reason, the balance also changes. We remove the recoil spring in the same way, much smaller than that of the Beretta, but now we compare them and we can also go to remove the barrel. Here we are, the barrel from the breech slide. Among other things, now the real Beretta enters the magazine of that software, surely because of this extension. It didn't want to hook up, but as you can see, it hooks up correctly. It also comes out correctly. In the barrel, obviously, the two weapons are quite different. First of all, the real Beretta must have ways to control the swing block and the closing block that is here, this part. The fake Beretta to the software doesn't have to do any of that. The differences are also evident in the back part, in the trigger mechanism, especially in the fact that the software Beretta does not have an ejector. The real Beretta, on the other hand, needs to eject the casings, so when the slide opens, the casings hit this extension. This, in fact, is called an ejector, as you can see quite clearly. From afar, it is not present. In fact, perhaps from afar, the presence of the ejector of the weapon is the most noticeable thing. Even our recoil springs, as we said, are very different. We said that this one from the real Beretta is much heavier. Also look at how much more massive it is. While, of course, the forces at play in the Airsoft one, among other things, from La Marui, if I'm not mistaken, is much lighter. Here, there is no comparison on the force exerted by the two springs. The trolleys, they are also very different from the outside and far away. They almost seem the same in every way. However, if we turn them around, we see a significant difference. Here, clearly, the trigger and percussion mechanism is completely different. Like, you see, we obviously have a shutter face, this extension that will then push out the pellet. While obviously with the real Beretta, we have an extractor and the weapon striker now hidden. And if from above the difference is not very clear, holding them in hand, there is a lot of difference in terms of weight. The slide of the real Beretta is much more massive. And of course, we have the difference between the barrels and the locking system. Or rather, the Beretta, if you don't know, has a locking system with this swinging block that locks into the slide. It's a fundamental part of the weapon's operation, which serves to contain the firing pressures for a sufficient period for the bullet to exit the barrel and therefore the pressure to decrease. If this system were not in place, the weapon would be a very dangerous hand bomb. As you can see, we have this block that can oscillate, and of course the large barrel that has the rifling, that of the software. Clearly very different, besides the fact that it's lighter, it's much smaller, it's obviously not rifled. It features, as you well know, a passion for software, the hop-up. And it's very interesting because this little block actually simulates, especially visually, the movement of the closure block that, I repeat, we have in reality. Obviously, there are no pressures to contain here. So it's not a component functional to the operation of the weapon. It's there because it's nice. Let's reassemble the two weapons. So let's first reassemble our little soft air cap. Here we can insert the barrel with this fake locking system. Then go on to put the recoil spring. Here it is in its place, and we can put everything back. Here it is. Reassembling the real Beretta is very similar. Because we put the barrel in the gun cart, we can then go on to apply our spring and our spring guide that we put here. It must constantly press on the closing block and everything can be inserted on the gun frame. We pull back a little, turn this disassembly block, and both of our Berettas are ready for use. If you like this video, leave a like, a comment, and subscribe to the channel.